All right, so right now in the game, it's pretty straightforward. The birds just kind of fall straight down. And right now we've got some more birds appearing as a certain number of birds get eaten. But it's not really that hard to, predict where the birds are going to go. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of more. I'm going to add a more directionality to the bird movement. But to do that, there's a couple of things that we need to add in that we're going to have to go over. And this kind of like reviews some stuff that we've covered in various ways in previous lessons. But I think it'll be good to look at how to do this. I'm going to comment out that save screenshot there. And then we're just going to find our bird object and just look at the movement section. So this isn't going to change any of the other game code. It's just going to really change how we set up the bird. So with the bird, we just have like a random x position to start and a y equals 0. So we start at the top of the canvas. And then we have a random speed value. And then we just move down. So we just go y equals y plus speed, which just means that we add the speed value to the y position each frame, which is what makes the bird go straight down. And then if we get to a certain point, then we are going to reset the bird position back to the top of the screen. So that's good, but it's a little boring. So why don't we see if we can modify the x position as well. So to do this, we are going to need another variable. So right now we're just using speed for y. But if we want speed on x, we're going to need a separate variable to do that. So instead of speed here, let's call this speed y. I'm just going to add a little y at the end. And then I'll just do that here as well. So before I change anything else, I'll just test that this still works. And it looks like it does. So that's good. I'm going to set the game state back to 2 so I don't have to click on the start screen every time. And let's go back to our bird. Okay, so now we can create an x speed to move horizontally. So we'll say let speed x, and we'll set this to either something between maybe -2 and 2. So if it's -2, the x value will get lower as the bird moves. So it'll go to the left. If it's +2, the bird value will get higher. So it'll move to the right. And so just like we have y equals y plus speed y, we're going to add x equals x plus speed x. It looks exactly the same. So a lot of times when we set things up, they're going to have very similar looking result, just like in our collision detection. But now we'll see the birds hopefully moving at an angle. But this is going to create an issue that we're going to see in a second. So eventually the bird makes it far enough over to the edge. Let's actually increase the x speed a little bit so we can see this. And I'm actually going to decrease the y speed a little bit. All right, so our bird eventually, oh, you know what? We're actually not going to see this because every time we randomize the bird, and we're not randomizing the speed. Okay, so this is a good example of forgetting how your program is set up. So in our reset function, every time the bird gets reset, we're actually not changing the speed at all because this speed variable doesn't exist anymore. So what we can do is just copy these and paste these. But what would probably actually make more sense is just to declare these values and then just call the reset function immediately because it sets all these values. So why don't we do that instead? So we'll just say, this is not exactly what I was planning to do, but it's a good thing to do anyway. So we'll say let x, y, speed x is alive and animation state. So we'll just declare all these values at the top of our bird function. Maybe I'll set these down here just so it's a little easier to read. And then I'll just call the reset button immediately to set those values. And let's see if that works. Okay, I'm getting an error. Animation state has already been declared. Oh, yeah, okay. So I'll have to put animation state here. And what we're doing here is we're really initializing the values, but we're also doing the reset. Okay. Now we have another error. Oh, and we don't have speed. Okay, so speed y is random 2 to 4, and speed x equals random -4 to 4. Okay, so now we should see the bird. Oh, we still have an error. Would we miss? Okay, 309. Okay. Somehow we're getting... Okay, I think what's happening is it's trying to detect a collision before the values have been set, but that shouldn't really be possible. Let's see. So I'm getting an error on line 309. I don't have a position for... I'm assuming it's object B. Let's console.log B position. Yeah, so X is nan. Oh, you know what? I think that's a different error. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. Oh, I spelled speed wrong, that's why. There we go. Okay. So now we've got our bird moving, but the problem that we're gonna notice is when the bird hits the side of the canvas, it's just going to disappear. So sometimes that doesn't really matter depending on where the bird starts from, but here and here the bird just completely disappears. So to fix that, what we need to do is something similar to what we do here. So if the bird goes below the height of the canvas, we're going to reset the position of the bird. We're going to do something similar with the X value, but we're going to change a little bit how we do it. So instead of resetting the bird, we're going to change the direction of the bird. So the direction of the bird is based on the speed X value. If it's negative, it goes to the left. If it's positive, it goes to the right. And so what we can do, let's look at our canvas for a moment. So we know that X is 0 over here, and we know that over here, X is width. And the bird starts somewhere. We can imagine maybe this is like X is 200. And if the speed is -1, it's going to go in this direction. So once we get to here, if we don't do anything, we just continue that way. But if we want to stay in the canvas, we can go this way. And so all we have to do is flip the speed from -1 to 1. So we can just change the speed to the opposite, and then we'll bounce back into the canvas. So this is a pretty basic, familiar thing that we do a lot in programming, in game programming. So we'll say if X is less than 0, that's going to test if we're on the left side of the canvas. If x is less than 0, instead of changing x, that'll change the position of the bird. What we're going to change instead is the speed x, which determines the direction. So I'll put a note here: if bird hits the side of canvas, switch direction. So all we have to do for this is we can say speed x equals speed x times -1. Because any value, whether it's negative or positive, if we multiply it by -1, it will be the opposite. So if it's 1 and we multiply it by -1, it'll be -1. And if it's -1 and we multiply it by -1, it'll become +1. So that'll work if the bird bounces off the left side of the canvas. Maybe we can see that. But we can see it's not working when the bird goes off to the right. So we see that bounce right there. And there's a little bounce right there. Okay, so how do we test for the right? The right is if x is greater than width. Then we do the exact same thing. And so this is a good example of a compound condition that we can use, which we haven't talked about yet, which is an OR condition. So an OR condition is when either or of two things can be true. And if the same thing happens here, we can combine them together. We do that using the two little lines, or pipes as they're sometimes called, which is the / key with the shift. So we just put these two conditions together, but it's OR. So these conditions can't be true at the same time, but one of them can be true. And as long as one of them is true, then we will switch the direction of the bird. So now we have our bird bouncing around in our canvas. It doesn't happen that often because our canvas is pretty wide, but we do see it happen. And as we add more birds, we'll probably see it happen more often. So that's just one example of modifying the movement of the bird to get a specific, change in how the birds move. But there's lots of different things you could do. You could add some randomness to how the birds move. That might make the game a little more challenging. You could, make the birds move from left to right more than from top to bottom. There's a lot of different ways that you could adjust the game to get more specific results. All right. So that's just one example, but I just wanted to kind of show how we can update the bird movement without changing any of the rest of the program. This is all just inside of the bird function itself. Okay. I'll stop